Hi guys, and welcome back to another Chillwave ASMR. I'm so glad you could be here today for something that's a little different. For today's video, I thought I would share with you some of the ways that I strive to keep a positive attitude and maintain a positive outlook. None of this is medical advice by any means, and I fully acknowledge that what works for me might not work for you. But I'm making this with the hope that perhaps there may be one or two things that I do that maybe you could try. To improve your positive outlook, sense of self-worth, your presence in the moment, and your sense of self in general. Little tidbits of wisdom from someone who's out there in the world, still trying to figure it all out and make it all work. So hopefully you find this a bit helpful, and if not, hopefully just a relaxing video to put on in the background while you're drifting off to sleep, or sitting at your desk, or just hanging out in general. So, this is all stuff that I have been working on for quite some time, and that I continue to work on. And self-improvement, positive outlook, and all of that good stuff, it all takes constant effort and work. But there is a way to build in a lot of this stuff into your life, and it really doesn't feel like work. So, I'd like to start with some habits and daily routines and things that you can build into your everyday life that will help to promote a healthy outlook and sense of self. And for me personally, these things help with mental health. The first point is your social surroundings and support system. Sometimes that's a bit out of our control, but they say you're the average of your 5 closest friends. I don't know who says that. Someone says that. But there's lots of evidence to suggest that your habits and ways of thinking are influenced by the people around you. So surrounding yourself with people who are supportive of you and your goals, who you turn be supportive of. People who are positive. People who genuinely want you to be your best self. People who maybe share interests or goals. People who care about you. This can be a superpower in times of difficulty or crisis or failure. For me, my biggest supporter and source of encouragement is my wife, Stephanie, who perhaps you know as Mrs. Chillwith. She is very encouraging and supportive, and she is straight up. She tells me how it is. Sometimes not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. And I can say honestly that she definitely wants the best for me, and I want the best for her. And on that same note, there's a lot of joy and happiness and fulfillment that comes from being able to be that support person for another person. So I derive a lot of pride and joy from being able to be that person for her as well. And it's true for my friends. I try to be present and encouraging and supportive. And this is a very positive thing. So that's point number one. Surround yourself with people who have a healthy disposition for life. The second point is exercise. There's a lot of growing evidence to suggest that routine exercise has a massive benefit on mental health and outlook. For me, I enjoy triathlon, which is swimming, biking, and running. That type of consistent and endurance cardiovascular fitness has made a massive positive impact in my life. It's led to new relationships, new goals, new achievements, and new failures. Which is awesome. The next big one is sleep. I cannot understate to you how important sleep is for your mind, your body, and your soul. Everyone's sleep needs are different, but I try to make it a priority to ensure that I'm getting enough sleep. This is sometimes difficult to do with my line of work, but when I have the opportunity to, I try to achieve good sleep. The next one is my dogs. I have 2 pugs, and they are very affectionate and very sweet, warm, caring dogs. There's lots of evidence to suggest that spending time with your dogs in close proximity can have a positive impact on your mental health. And I feel that it certainly has for me. The next one is meditation. A lot of people are hesitant to consider meditation as an option, but it is a very helpful, a very powerful tool for staying present in your thoughts, for staying focused, and helping with things like stress and anxiety. The argument that a lot of people make against meditation is that they can't stay present in their thoughts or just focus on their breathing, that their mind wanders. And of course, this is exactly why you should meditate. It's made a big difference for me, and it is a practice, which means it takes time. I have never had a session of meditation where my mind didn't wander. And as soon as you realize that your mind has wandered, you bring it back. You're focused to your breathing. There are lots of different types of meditation, and there's lots of different types of guided meditation. I use an app called Headspace for guided meditation, and it is very helpful. I am not sponsored by them. I'm just telling you what I use. The next thing is finding hobbies or habits that bring you joy, that challenge you, that bring a sense of fulfillment. Chillwave ASMR is that in a big way for me. I find it so fulfilling to be creative and make videos. I find it therapeutic to open up Pokemon cards and do the role plays and the live streams and interact with all of you guys, and it brings me immense joy to be able to participate in this community. I've been a long time consumer of ASMR material on YouTube, and I'm so grateful now to be a creator of that content as well. And I'm grateful to all of you guys for being here. The next thing that I find immensely important is to have goals that challenge you. There is an author named Ryan Holiday who wrote a book called The Obstacle is the Way, where sometimes the difficult path forward is the best path for you and will likely lead to self-improvement, self-discovery, and achievement. And I fully believe that. Of course, failure and not meeting the goals is part of that journey. But that's okay. Failure is part of growth. Learning to live with and deal with failure is important. Being able to accept it, dust yourself off, and move forward with a renewed sense of vigor towards your goal. There's nothing like it. And I promise you that when you do reach your goal, you'll feel a real sense of pride for having stuck with it. is therapy. Whether it's talk therapy, psychotherapy, counseling, this is a great thing. It is essentially what I consider to be physiotherapy, but for the mind. We all carry issues, whether it's from childhood or work stress or biases or challenges in our relationships, and having an impartial third party who's trained in that area can be wildly helpful to talk through things, to consider things, and it is a wildly helpful, wildly influential process. And I acknowledge that not everyone can do this, and if you ever do get the opportunity to, it is worth exploring. I have been to therapy on and off, through difficult times, through good times, and if you like to talk about your problems, it's kind of a healthy space to do that. Some of my most memorable conversations have been in therapy, just so you know. Okay, so that is essentially the kind of day-to-day things that you can look at doing. And for me, when I'm trying to introduce something like this, I don't set crazy standards for myself. I try to introduce things, one at a time. If I'm trying to build a habit, that takes a lot of time, and so starting very small. So for example, with meditation, 5 minutes a day, something like that, just in a quiet space and just sitting down, focusing on your breathing in a quiet place and doing it that way. But there are lots of guided meditation online as well. For exercise, a lot of people, when they start, they go too hard, too fast, and keeping it light, especially to start, and easing yourself into it is the key. If we want to build healthy habits that last, we need to understand that this is, no pun intended, a marathon, not a sprint. And it takes time. And so, giving your body and your mind time to condition into this new habit is key. The next things that I want to talk about are kind of ways of thinking. So, one thing that I find really helpful in my day-to-day life is a focus on gratitude. If I'm doing something difficult, or if I'm doing something that I don't want to be doing, or if I'm struggling with something, I try to reorient my thought process toward gratitude. And this can be wildly helpful. I'll give you an example. If I'm doing a triathlon, and I'm on the run portion of the triathlon, and it's very hot, and I am cooked because I've already swam and run, and I'm in kind of a dark place, and I'm really fighting to try to keep myself moving forward. And I'm thinking to myself, well, why did I sign up for this? I did this to myself. Why did I do this? I try to reorient those negative thoughts towards gratitude. I'm grateful that my body allows me to do this. There are a lot of people who wish they could do this but can't, and I should be very grateful for this opportunity. I've also had injuries in the past that have stopped me from being able to do it, and at that time I was miserable and wished that I could have done it, and now I'm doing it. So trying to reorient and pivot your thought process towards gratitude can be very, very helpful. Having a little sip of my coffee. Another way to look at is, let's say, for example, you are having a tough time in school. You're still there. You're still in school. You're doing it. And remember what I said, that failure is an important part of growth. So even the worst case scenario is that if you fail, there are always avenues and options to move forward and achieve your goals. And so a lot of people can't go forward with education for whatever reason, and you're there, you're doing it. So reorienting your thought process towards gratitude can be very helpful. Another way of looking at problems is from an internal versus external locus of control. What I mean by that is that a lot of people will look at a problem as though it's happening to them. So maybe their mom will be mad at them, and their teacher's upset with them, or maybe one of your friends is going through a tough breakup or something like that. Sure, these things absolutely will affect you and will cause stress and challenges, but focusing on what you can control versus not control, and realizing that the world is not out to get you. In life, when problems come up, there are things that we can control and what we can't control. And sometimes those problems will be mixed. Your friend is going through a breakup. That's really tough. There's nothing that you can do to change that. Finding ways to control what you can control and worry only about that is sometimes easier said than done, but is the way forward. My friend's mother recently passed away, and this was a big source of stress and grief in our friend group. While grieving that loss, I acknowledge that there's nothing that I can do to change the situation. Grief is a normal and healthy part of life. But what can I do, realistically? I realized that the best thing that I could do was to try to be a good friend and a good support for my friend whose mom passed. And that's something that I could do. And absolutely that did bring worry, but it also brought some solace to be able to be there for him. Some people let their problems stack up like that. But doing your best to reorient yourself. What can I do in this situation? What can I control in this situation? And worry only about that. Because some things in life we are powerless to, and they are going to happen no matter what we do. Do our best. So, in assigning worry, if it's out of your control, trying to keep the worries to a minimum. And this takes constant reorientation of thought. If it's in your control, find a way to deal with it. list, get organized, make a plan, talk to your friends, talk to people that care about you, your support network, your therapist. Make a plan and take action. The next piece is around time. Our time is our only true asset. We have a finite amount of time. We don't know how much time we have, but we spend it every day without any control over that. Time marches on, as they say. And I say this because the way that you spend your time matters. Finding ways to spend your time to improve your life and the lives of those around you, to make a meaningful difference, can bring a lot of pride and a lot of joy. We only get one shot, and so making the most of it really matters. YOLO, as they say. The next one is one that I constantly struggle with. This is probably the biggest hurdle that I'm currently grappling with. I'm happy to share it with you. This one is boundary setting with work and relationships. And it kind of goes along with the last point about time being finite and unknown. In life, there are a lot of competing demands for your time and attention. And there are only 24 hours in a day. Some activities require time: sleep, food, errands, caring for loved ones, caring for your pets, your self-care, exercise, meditation, all of these things. Your work, your school. Many of these things will be obligations, things that you have to do, non-negotiables. And when we agree to do things in addition to our obligations, we are assigning that last little bit of time to some other entity. So maybe it's work. Maybe work wants you to do overtime. Maybe there's something a friend wants to do that you don't really want to do. Learning to say no to something that you don't need to do and don't want to do, and not just doing it because the other person wants you to, is essential. I'm not saying be selfish with your time all the time. Sometimes we have to give, and that's totally okay. setting priorities in your life, non-negotiables for yourself, is essential. And learning to say no when you can is essential. I struggle with this sometimes because I do derive a lot of joy from making others happy. And if I agree to do something that I don't want to do, oftentimes it leads to me having to sacrifice something that I do want to do. Maybe it's a workout. Maybe it's a video project. Maybe it's time at home with my wife. And oftentimes I'll agree to do something in the moment because I see that that person really wants me to, and I want to make them happy. And then immediate regret, because I know it's going to take me driving a long distance or traveling a long distance just to get there, or it's going to require me to sacrifice something that is important in my life to do it. And so that person may be happy that I'm doing the thing with them, but the cost is great on my end. And this is something that I'm working on. It's true also in my line of work, because there is a shortage of doctors in emergency rooms, and there are a lot of hospitals in great need of doctors to cover shifts. If I wanted to fill every day with work, every waking moment with work, I could. There's so much. So, setting boundaries with work can sometimes be important as well when you have that kind of control. They say if you haven't taken care of yourself, you can't take care of someone else. So being careful about being too much in service. Being in service is good because it makes me feel good to be able to help out. But there is a red line that you can cross where you've given up too much of your personal life and you lose your footing. Your routines and habits break down. And I've certainly been guilty of that. Sometimes it's hard to say no. But like I said, it's a work in progress, and I'm sure it's not unique to me. Lots of people out there are dealing with the same thing. And my goodness, what a problem to have, to be in such high demand. My goodness, I am grateful for it. I am so grateful for it. But I need to learn how to manage that in a healthy and realistic way for my own mental health as well. So, yeah, it's there's a yin and a yang there. There's a boundary that needs to be set. Anyways, I'm working on it. Another really important thing is in dealing with interpersonal conflict, whether it is in your romantic relationships or with your friends or your family or even at work. They say that forgiveness is good for the soul, and I believe that that's true. I think learning to let go of grief that you have with people, or issues that you have. And managing conflict that way can be wildly helpful for your own sense of inner peace and sense of self. So not holding grudges, and when dealing with conflict, try to center yourself in a humble and open-hearted frame of mind. It's important to listen. And be open to the idea that you could be wrong. A lot of people are not, interestingly enough. But not dwelling on the negativity and not carrying feelings of hate or anger, because those will erode. They will eat away at you, and they're not good. So learning to admit when you're wrong, being humble, and forgiving people is key. Letting go of those negative thoughts and feelings can be very helpful. Taking that kind of empathetic approach to managing conflict can be really helpful. Imagine yourself in the other person's shoes and try to understand where they're coming from. And giving it that kind of thought can really help with trying to forgive. Now, that all being said, there are some things that are really difficult to forgive, for sure. And it takes work, for sure. But it's doable. And on the other side of anger is peace and joy. So it's worth looking at, for sure. Okay, the next one that I want to talk about is failure. This can be a really tough thing. The philosopher Epictetus said, "To improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." And we, of course, remember the immortal words of Bruce Wayne, Batman. His butler said, "Why do we fall, Bruce? So we can pick ourselves up." And of course, I mentioned Ryan Holiday, "The obstacle is the way." Failure is, from my perspective, an important part of growth. We try to reach a goal, whatever that goal is. Maybe it's passing an exam, maybe it's placing in your age group in a triathlon, or maybe it's putting out a new video every day for 30 days. Sometimes we fail at our goals, and there's all kinds of difficult things that come with that. Maybe it's embarrassment, maybe it's imposter syndrome, feeling like you don't deserve to be here, or maybe it is your sense of self-worth that is kind of punished in this thing. When you meet with failure, because we will all at some point meet with failure, you have basically two paths forward. You have the path where you say, and this is the external locus of control, "Oh, this test was too hard. I couldn't do it. I failed. This thing is brutal. Like, there was no way that I could have done this." And then you're just miserable, beating yourself up about it. Or you can say, the other path is you can say, "I failed this test. the way. Let's say I'm in a triathlon and I have just a terrible day. In my last triathlon, I got a jellyfish sting. I got 2 flat tires on the bike. Both of those things completely out of my control. There's nothing I could have done to prevent that. But on the run portion, I was inadequately prepared. Like, I did a terrible job. It was horrible. And during that time, I was really beating myself up. I was like, oh, why did I do this? I don't deserve to be here. And I was like, no, this is dangerous thinking. So I finished the triathlon, and then I thought, what am I going to do about this? I have to isolate the things that are causing the problems and change my training and improve my consistency and try again in the future. I have failed exams, and I've done the same thing. You know, you at first you get the news, you're like, oh, this is terrible news. And then instead of saying, oh, that professor has it out for me, or oh, that test was way too hard, or oh, this was, putting that responsibility on the people around you rather than on yourself is the problem. You have to take responsibility and say, you know what, I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna do better. And then you go on and you prepare for it again. You change your study method maybe, or you look into yourself to see what could I do differently this time. Maybe I only studied 2 hours a day. Maybe I need to study way more. Maybe I need to eat better. Maybe I need to sleep better. Maybe I need to, etc., etc. Finding ways to carve out a solution that is going to lead to your success. Talk to the professor. There's all kinds of stuff. So all this to say that when you meet failure, don't feel like this is going to be the end of all things. This is okay. It's a normal part of life. We all fail at something at some point. The key approach is to pick yourself up, dust off the cobwebs, and strike at a new plan, and take that control over the situation to do better. And sometimes that requires a ton of work. Sometimes it requires a hard look at yourself to see what you're doing that is not contributing positively. But taking total responsibility for yourself and your actions and carving out a plan to move forward, that's the key. I'm not saying any of this is easy, and it often takes a lot of work and continuously trying to reframe your thought process. Nelson Mandela said, courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. And it takes courage to face yourself, to be honest about yourself, with yourself, and to face your failures, and to pick yourself up and move forward. But I promise you, you can find a solution, and you can make this thing happen, whatever it is. Alright, my friends, some final thoughts. Number 1, find humor in your day-to-day life. Wherever you can. Laughing is literally the best medicine, so humor is key. Be humble, and don't be hard on yourself. Having that approach, dealing with challenges in your life where you look at yourself and say, oh, I didn't deserve this, oh, I'm terrible, oh, etc. It's not helpful. Be humble. Look at yourself, and look at yourself with a loving eye and say, okay, what can I do to change this? If there's something you want to change, what can I do to change this to achieve my goal? And I promise you that that approach is going to be much better. It's not easy, but it's doable. But beating yourself up is not going to improve things, I promise you. If there's something in your life that you want to change or achieve, it has to come from within you. No one else is going to get up every morning and go for a run. No one else is going to do all these things for you. No one else is going to build that study schedule and hit the books for all those hours. That has to come from within you. And so, sometimes we're motivated and we feel really good and we really want to do the thing. That's amazing. But motivation is a luxury. Even if you're not motivated, discipline has to kick in. It's that fail-safe generator. It has to kick in, and you still have to do it. I'm making this sound like a lot of work, but it's really not. And I promise you, keep chipping away at it. Start small, build up from there, and we're going to build new habits and new healthy ways of thinking that are going to be really strongly promoting a positive way of life, a way of self, and all that good stuff. So the last thing I want to say is just acknowledge that we're doing our best and that we want the best for ourselves and the people around us. And life is not an easy thing. There's tons of all kinds of different competing interests and conflicts and relationships and work and desire for your attention and your time, and we can only do our best, and that's okay. That's okay. But I guess all I'm trying to say is to have a positive outlook, it takes a multifactorial approach, and it's something that I work on very regularly and all the time, and I want that for you. I want you to be positive and feel good about yourself and feel strong in yourself, and I truly believe that if you don't right now, that you can, and if you do, amazing. Tell me your secrets. But in all seriousness, guys, I'm really grateful for all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I kind of went on a bit of a ramble there, but I hope you found it interesting and at least gained a little bit of insight into who I am a little bit. And I wish you guys all the best. All right, see you tomorrow. Bye.